What's up, YouTube community? What's up, YouTube fam? Welcome back to the Emperor Atheist channel with your host, Emperor Atheist. Today, I'm going to get right into it, as I always do. But before I do, I'd like to thank all my new subscribers. Thank all my subscribers, period. Thanks for all the likes, all the shares. Thanks for all the comments, negative or positive. I don't really look at a lot of comments anymore as negative or positive. I just try to answer them because I know different people are coming from different places psychologically, and I understand it. Last video I did was dealing with responding to my trolls. And like I said, I enjoy the trolls, and I will feed the trolls from time to time. But anyway, today's topic is on who created God. Yes, who created God? Now, you go online, or you go in certain think tanks or social forums, and you see a lot of Christian groups or so-called Christian scholars, so-called, or apologists, who try to use the Kalam cosmological argument to answer this question. And I've done a video on the Kalam cosmological argument that's been popularized today by none other than William Lane Craig. I've debunked this video along with many other people who have debunked this video. And I mention this particular argument a lot because basically one of the most popular videos that Christian scholars use today to even try to bring any type of argument for God. It's not evidence for God, as I always say. It's just a philosophical argument. Once again, an argument in and of itself is not evidence. So I always have to make that point because some people hit me up online and they always say, well, this person tried to use this argument, the moral argument, or they tried to use the watchmaker's argument or the ontological argument. And I always tell people arguments are just arguments because this is all Christians and religious people have, are arguments. They're not even hypotheses, basically. So these particular things are being popularized by Christian apologists. And as I said before, it's not really popular amongst the majority of Christians. Most Christians don't even understand these arguments that Christian apologists use. You ask the average Christian, do they understand the moral argument for God? And no, they don't. Or you ask them, they don't, ontological argument, they don't understand it. You ask them about the Kalam cosmological argument or the theological argument or fine-tuning, whatever you want to call it. And most Christians and believers don't understand these arguments at all. But I try to make these particular arguments popularize myself. I want to normalize these particular arguments for my viewing audience and for people that I dialogue with, especially atheists and agnostics. Because a lot of atheists and agnostics, they hear these in debates all the time in different forums and on the street. But a lot of them don't understand it themselves. So I try to normalize these particular arguments. So people, when you run into these arguments, if you run into, which is a small percentage of theists who would even come with these arguments, but when you run into them, then you'll be able to recognize them, and then you'll be able to shred them to pieces because it's a bunch of bullshit. So basically, this is why I might sound repetitive on certain arguments because these are very popular arguments. And as you know, a lot of people, like Christopher Hitchens used to always say, Sam Harris says a lot. Since these particular people, especially people like William Lane Craig and others, still use these particular redundant rhetorical arguments, then obviously atheists, we have to combat this bullshit, and we have to keep repeating. We have to be repetitive in actually making it a distinction to destroy these bullshit arguments. We have to keep putting out the fire of these particular rhetorical Christian apologist arguments. So I didn't name this video the Kalam Part 2. I just wanted to name it Who Created God? But within the Kalam cosmological argument, for those who are familiar with the argument, and matter of fact, I'm going to put the link again, William Lane Craig discussing this again so you understand their viewpoint and how they wire this bullshit together. So I'll put that in the link. About the Kalam Cloud, those who actually want to go and just see what the hell it's about. It makes no sense, but I would like for you all to actually go and actually just at least read it and understand it, and how they try to use it and try to weave rhetorical arguments, which is basically conjecture and bullshit. But anyway, when I ask a question, or when anyone asks a question, who created God? The first thing that the Kalam cosmological argument basically states is that everything has a cause. And I'm just going to paraphrase the argument. But basically within the Kalam cosmological argument, the universe was created, or the universe is here, so therefore the universe has a cause, or what caused it. Then this is basically just premises that I'm paraphrasing. So if everything in existence has a cause, then what is that cause? Well, Christian, religious, not just Christian, but Islamic scholars as well, because its foundation is Islamic, coming from Ghazali. For those who are not familiar, and I talked about this in one of my last videos. But Christians have popularized today, mainly William Lane Craig. But anyway, like I said, this is the premise for the bullshit argument, the cosmological argument. Everything in existence, everything that exists within the universe has a cause. Therefore, that cause must be God. Therefore, God exists. This is the premise of the argument. 3 premises, some arguments, and maybe 4 or 5. But these are the simple 3 premises of this argument. But the thing about it, God is not included within the everything has a cause. They say, just by definition of this particular being that they believe in, that God is what is called the uncaused cause. In other words, God was just here. And it's funny that religious people always accuse atheists or people who just, not necessarily atheists, because atheism and science is not synonymous. And some reason religious people always think this. They think that just because you're atheist or you're anti-theist, that you're automatically just for science. And that's not necessarily true. You have a lot of theists and Christians that are scientific and understand the facts of evolution, things like this. And you have some atheists that are just not, scientific literate. So I want to make that clear before I go any further. Atheism and science is not synonymous. But we, mostly as atheists and agnostics, we understand that science is a tool for knowledge. And we understand this. We understand that science has debunked religion and has been debunked religions for centuries. So we need to go with the winner. And the winner so far is science. But science never makes a claim that there is no God. Science has never made a claim that there is a God. But science is a great tool for knowledge, of where we come from, where planets come from, but how do we get here? It don't give us all the answers right now, but it's given us a lot of answers and a lot of information, much more than what religion has ever done. Religion, on the other hand, claims to know everything because you claim that this God is this uncaused cause. But you blame and you accuse atheists of believing that something came from nothing, which is not the case. Atheists do not believe that something came from nothing. It is obvious by default that the universe came from something. But what is that something? And see, this is the issue that I have with Christians and Muslims and people who believe in this spook God, this sky daddy. But they always, when it comes to this conversation, they always seem to commit intellectual suicide. And what I mean by that is when they make the premises or agree with the premises of the Kalam cosmological argument, they always say, well, yes, everything in existence had a cause except God. Now, this is where they always kind of hang themselves up and they stick their face in their own toilet of shit. Just by default, you cannot make your God the uncaused cause, because then you run into several problems. One of the main problems is, how do you, let's just say for the sake of argument, let's just say that a creator is an uncaused cause. But what's problematic about this, how can you say that it's your personal God? Is how do you know it's the God of the Bible? Or Muslims, how can you say that this uncaused cause or this unmovable mover is the God of the Quran? See, these are the things that you run into. You keep running your heads into brick walls when just simple logic is brought to you. Just for the sake of argument, we're going to say that a creator or some deity was an uncaused cause and just was here. First thing we have to understand is, then you are saying that something came from nothing, because obviously your God is something, right? I'll give you a second to answer that. So if your God is something, and you saying that it was always here in existence, which of course you have no evidence to say this is just you talking off the top of your little heads. But to say that means it obviously still came from something. Was there no beginning point for this particular being? It came from nothing. So you kind of defeat yourselves in that particular point. Now, back to the other point of proving your personal God. How can you say that this is the God of the Bible when the Muslims have a Quran who don't agree with you, don't believe in the human sacrifice of Jesus Christ, which all comes from Mithraism, which I'm going to make a video on the religion of Mithraisms and the god Mithra, which thrived, whose birthday happened to be December 25th. It thrived in the Roman Empire around the 1st century to about the 4th century, about 300-400 years it thrived. And if you study, I don't want to get off the subject, but I'm going to do a video on the god Mithra and its ties to Christianity, deep ties. But anyway, and how can you back to proving your personal God? How can you say that this uncaused cause is your personal God? The answers to that, you can't say that. But then I'm going to go even a little further. Even saying that this uncaused cause is a deity, period, is still questionable. We don't know that. We have no idea that anything was ever uncaused. We don't know. And this is the thing, and I'm not going to get into scientific different theories, multiverse theories, or any of these type things, because we actually don't really have empirical evidence that the universe was created. We don't know. We do have empirical evidence of a starting point that we can pinpoint, which we call the Big Bang. But obviously there was something before the Big Bang. It ain't like it was just it's an empty space and the Big Bang just came out of nothing. Scientists are not saying that. And I hope no atheists are saying that. Because energy and radiation is something that we can't trace. We don't know where energy came from. We don't know where that background radiation that scientists find, we don't know where that come from. So to say the least, basically we don't know. And the thing is, for Christians to say, or Muslims to say that their God is an uncaused cause, you're basically placing you're placing something within your argument to where it can't be defeated, which it already has been defeated and debunked. But the thing is, you're creating your definition, because by your definition, you're saying that God is something that is uncreated, that is everlasting. This is your definition of your God. No one else gives definition. We don't have to agree with your definition. And when we talk about God, G-O-D, just deal with the English concept of God, which is the most popular one as of now, and not getting off into the Hebrew or the Arabic or the Greek, but just dealing with God. It's basically a new European concept. Where did the etymology of God come from? Who created the word God? Linguists still kind of don't know. They try to trace it back to the Sanskrit word called hu, which they says may mean to pour something or to invoke, things like this. So it's questionable, and it's a question mark just on the word God and the concept of God, because there's so many concepts of God. And then when you go back to the Greek, theos, which is basically the New Testament, because and as I just mentioned, as far as Mithras, the religion of Mithra and the god Mithra, and how its connection to Christianity, the Greeks were even more. When you talk about Platonic philosophy, Plato and Aristotle, the Greek mindset and the Greek pantheon played a big role in the shaping of Christianity. And once again, whether Jesus was actually a historical person or a mythical person, it doesn't matter, because the things around him, the stories that were written in the New Testament, were mythical stories that were lies, and the people accepted them, and now it's very popular. And it's a big money machine now. Christianity is a money machine. But the thing about it, when you look at the Greek history, you look at ancient Iranian, ancient Mithra, Zoroastrianism, you look at all of these different things in the ties, all the way going back to ancient Egypt, and you can't help but see the connections with the religions, the symbolism of these religions, the ceremonies of these religions. They mirror Christianity in so many different ways. But like I said, that'll be a whole nother video. But where did God come from? In Genesis 1:26, the Bible states that these particular beings were talking to each other, and they said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness." So in Genesis 1:26, it is apparent that these gods, or Elohim, which is used in the Hebrew, created men. But in actuality, men created God. Because if we are in the likeness of a deity, or in the image of a deity, then that means that this deity has arms, legs, he has feet, he has an asshole to shit out of, he has an immune system, a digestive system. What would be the purpose of these beings saying, let us make these men in our own image out of obviously dirt and clay, according to the Bible and Quran? Not that I take it seriously, because no one should take it seriously. But why would these particular beings make a statement like this if there wasn't, if their likeness and image was not the prototype of what we look like today? Which is contradictory to the scriptures, because most of you believers, you believe that God is a spirit. Now, if God is a spirit, how can we be in his image, in his likeness? We're not spirits. I know you people are like, oh, well, you know, this is just the physical and this is a soul. That's a bunch of bullshit and mythological bullshit. Teachings of the soul is also etched in Greek and African and Egyptian mythology. And I'm going to speak on that as well. I'm not going to cram everything into one video, but I'm going to speak on it. And I'm going to make another video dealing with the religion of Mithra. And I'm going to speak about the whole teachings of the soul and where it come from and how it's etched into the Bible and the Quran and all of these other holy books, the Torah, or whatever you want to call it. But the thing is, God didn't create man, but it was the other way around. Man created God, because ancient men, archaic men, had no other way to explain or to understand the sunlight, moon, the phases of the moon. They didn't understand rain, thunder. And you got to think, these archaic type minds, only thing they could think of had to be something more powerful than man to them. Things that we can explain today, simple things that a meteorologist can explain just watching the weather on the news. Ancient archaic men couldn't understand it. They couldn't grasp it. They couldn't grasp centrifugal forces. They couldn't grasp gravity. They couldn't grasp certain things that we know to be simple things that third and fourth graders grasp now. So they wrote about them, and they created myths. They created their own gods, and these particular gods became the creators of the world in different religions and different cultures all over the world, from Africa to Greece to ancient India to the Sanskrit, all the way to the Americas. We talk about the Aztecs and the Incas, the Olmecs, the Native Americans of North America, the Cherokees, all of the tribes, the Sioux. Everybody had their God story. You know, everybody had their creation story. Go up to the Eskimos in Alaska, Japan, Asia, Australia, the Aborigines of Australia. Everybody had their creation story and how it happened. Now, if there is only one God, then it seems as though this one God could have at least kept his story intact throughout the world. The planet Earth is such a small thing to such a intelligent, powerful being. Seemed like he could have kept his story kind of intact. Do you know how many different God stories and mythical stories just in Africa? Even though Africa is a big continent, over 12,000 square miles, but there are so many from the east to the west to the south to the north, different stories from the Ashantis to the Zulu. Oh man, to the Fasha, to the. It is so many different mythical God stories just on one continent that you would be so, your mind would be so confused, and not, I won't say confused. It's really a thrilling thing, because I studied so many different type African religions and languages, but it's just it has to make a person think as to why would one God, one powerful, all-knowing, all-powerful God, allow so many different branches to come from one particular root. It doesn't make sense, and it causes confusion. Not only that, a lot of these religions are very inclusive, meaning that these religions are not saying, well, hey, I don't care if you believe that some damn European white Jew died for your sins, we still accept you. All of these different religions still accept people. And the thing about it is, the three Abrahamic faiths, they are exclusive religions. They will kill you if they don't believe you, or they have, all of them, not just fundamentalist Islam, but Christianity is killed in the name of Jesus as well. So we can't let Christians off the hook. It's just as of today, Islam is like, according to whoever is at the forefront of murdering and killing people and trying to bring Sharia law to the land. Now, this is a strange thing. It is a strange thing. Do I want Sharia law in America? Hell no. I don't even like American law. Why the fuck would I want savage ass Islamic law in America? But this is what Muslims are doing today. But just because we're in this time period doesn't take away what the Jews and the Christians have already done in the name of their religions. So these are three main religions that are hell-bent on killing people who don't believe their way, or trying to convince people to believe in the bullshit they believe in. But all of them have created their own God. All of them wrote their own books. The Muslims wrote their own book to favor the Arab. Although it's supposed to be the same God of the Bible, the same prophets, King David, Solomon, Jesus, Enoch, all of the same prophets that the Bible speaks of, the Quran speaks of. And they might add their own little simple little few ones like Luqman and certain ones in there, but it's the same particular characters of the Quran. But yet, when you go to the Quran says that Jesus didn't die for the sins of the people. The Bible, New Testament says it does. The Quran says it wasn't Isaac that was Abraham was supposed to sacrifice for God, but it was really Ishmael. You understand what I'm saying? It's a bunch of tribalism and bullshit that man made it for themselves. Why would the Quran say that it wasn't Isaac, but instead of Ishmael that was supposed to sacrifice? Because they want their line to look like we are the favored of God, while the Jews wrote their own stories. So it's all a bunch of bullshit, and it's a bunch of crap that we need to back up out of. And I'm not talking to atheists or agnostics, really. I try to really get my message out to Christians. And some people say I'm too harsh in my videos. They say, well, Emperor Atheist, if you speak a little nicer, you probably could get across over to more people. Fuck that. It's fucking time to wake the fuck up. I'm not trying to be nice to certain people or trying to do a certain thing, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be nice to certain people or do a certain thing. I'm trying to get my point across. I'm trying to teach people to think for themselves, to get away from this bullshit called religion. I'm Emperor Atheist. I'm out. Peace.